And it's preseason week 2.
Studs and duds, baby. Studs and duds.
Let's talk about them. And welcome back to the Standard Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jono.
And I'm your host, Chris, and we are talking about our favorite studs and our favorite duds from week 2.
Now, preseason week 2 was a little more interesting than week 1. We saw some good starters in week 1, and we saw a downtick in usage in week 2. Most of them, like even backups that played real well in week 1, coaches saw what they needed to see and didn't need to play in week 2. I expect there to be some more in week 3 because they're now ramping up for the start of the season.
Right.
And people who don't play their starters in any of the preseason, we have seen slower starts to the offenses in fantasy football. But let's talk about my team, the New York Giants, here against the Texans.
So we're starting with duds, right?
Well, why don't we start with... Yeah, let's start with duds. Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones stinks.
Daniel Jones, he threw 2 interceptions.
Bad one in the end zone.
Yeah, he tried to avoid taking the safety and threw it into the hands of the Texans for a pick 6. At that point, take the safety. But I will say a highlight in this game here, Malik Neighbors. I think he looked really good in terms of the opportunities he had. He's going to be heavily targeted. We saw that in his snaps there. I believe he had 6 or 7 targets in the 1 quarter or 1 half that he was there. So extrapolate that into a full game for the full half. You're seeing 14, 15 targets from a receiver.
Yeah, I just don't know what the production is going to be like.
Correct.
I mean, just Daniel Jones stinks.
Yeah.
So Malik Neighbors, great, but he's stuck with a quarterback that can't move the ball.
And again, this was their first time playing together, really again. So I get that, but I fully expect them to be in week 3. I think that we'll see a little bit more better offense, and they didn't scheme against this Texas defense either. I will say Eric Gray, I was pleased again with watching the way he ran the ball compared to the way that Singletary did.
I think he's a guy that you need to keep your eye on.
Yeah.
I mean, the remainder of preseason, the next 2 weeks, if you haven't drafted yet, the next 2 weeks, keep your eye on Eric Gray because he's a guy that's really sneaky that you can get in the 12th and 13th round.
For free.
Or the 14th round. Take your defense before him.
Because literally, Singletary scored the touchdown yesterday, but Singletary had 10 carries for 20 yards. Singletary had terrible, except for some games last year, had terrible yards per carry. Eric Gray is lightning in a bottle for this team. He's not the fastest running back out there. He's not going to be Jalen Wright. He's not going to be these guys that are speedsters. But he's fast, quick, and he's a one-cut guy. And one-cut guys get chunk plays because all they do is make one guy miss, and they're on to the next level.
Yep.
And I think that's what you're going to see with Eric Gray. And if he's the spark that the Giants need at the running game, they're going to give him more opportunities at some point during the season.
Yeah. Let's move on to another game where for a team that we both have kind of criticized a little bit on the aid being the draft pick where they took him, and for what we saw of him out of college, and that's Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
You know what? Like, I'll eat my words here. Like, I like what I've seen out of him so far. I don't know what that's going to be like when he starts to face adversity, when he starts to face the full game script of
people scheming against him.
Yes,
coaches scheming against him.
But he's looked good so far, and so is Rome Odunze.
Well, I will say there's only a couple people in this league, and I literally think only 2 people in this league that can make some of those running away from your arm side throws up the sideline, and that's him and Pat Mahomes that can do it that well. And Pat's the best at it, but he's got the arms. Caleb had the arm strength to do it, and he threw it to Odunze on a dime. Like, it's very difficult to do that in general. That's a shortstop type of play, and both those guys have the athleticism to do it. So I like his ability to improvise.
Well, that was always one of his strengths. Like, we don't see him as he's not a mobile quarterback, but he's a scrambling quarterback to get outside the pocket, and he throws really, really well outside the pocket and on the run. And that's one of his strengths. And if he is scrambling and he has to move out to the pocket, having guys like Odunze, having DJ Moore, and the one dud from this so far from the first 2 weeks has been Keenan Allen.
It's a light dud.
It's a light dud, and we'll see how kind of that plays out into the season. But I think we also need to kind of keep our eye on where Dunze is going, because I think his value might start creeping up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the reports came out Keenan Allen's overweight, and I use that term lightly because it's a football player. But he's playing at a heavier weight right now than he did last year in his record-breaking season. He's about 15, 20 pounds overweight. They last recorded him at 230. I think he played at 211 last year. So if that's the case, like, that's going to slow you down a little bit. Now, again, football players bulk up leading up to the season. He's got 2 more weeks to shed weight, and it easily can do that. And he probably is already doing it. So I take that with a grain of salt. But he wasn't targeted heavily. He didn't look like he was that open. DJ Moore was wide open a lot. And even when he wasn't, he was getting needle-threaded throws to him. And then Odunze had the ability to get open a couple times, and a couple times he wasn't, and they tried to squeeze some throws in. So it's something to keep an eye on for sure. And also, there's an opportunity at this Chicago Bears offense. They went and got DeAndre Swift. That's not a bell cow running back. So what if they decide to do a lot more 3 wide receiver sets here? They got Cole Kmet and Gerald Everett. They've got receiving tight ends there too, but now they've got 3 premier wide receivers. They could run more 3 wide receiver sets that makes all 3 of these guys viable on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah.
So that's something to keep an eye on, especially maybe week 3 if they go out there for a full half or something like that.
Yeah. I'm still holding my breath. He hasn't played in the Chicago Winds yet, and Soldier Field, this California kid, So I want to talk about the
Chiefs. Let's talk about the Chiefs.
All right.
We'll do it real quick because Pat Mahomes looked every bit of.
I want to talk about something, and then you throw your team in there.
The Chiefs. I'm not. Well, okay.
Yeah, I want to talk about this, and you're like, "Yo, let's talk about the Chiefs."
Well, listen, let's just do it real quick because it's the next game
we'll
on my list. Xavier Worthy looked good. He was getting open. He was getting open often. Pat Mahomes was trying to get the ball his way. We saw Pat Mahomes in midseason form, behind the back pass, improvisation. I think, to me, Pat Mahomes has a bounce back season from last year where his stats ended, and I think people are drafting C.J. Stroud above him in some leagues, and he's going right up in front of C.J. Stroud. I think he still should be drafted in front of C.J. Stroud. In terms of anybody else, Rashee Rice we just solidified that he's the guy there.
Rashee Rice. I know Marquise Brown didn't play in this game, but I think that this is kind of what we saw yesterday is going to be very indicative of what we're going to see the entire season. I think a lot of Xavier Worthy, I think he's going to be involved heavily into this offense as a kind of a big play guy. The volume guy is going to be Rashee Rice, and then Travis Kelce is going to do Travis Kelce things.
Yeah.
So I think this offense is a lot better because the receiving core is better. They don't have Kadarius Toney dropping passes and having balls hit off his hands and going to the defensive backs to go pick 6, lose opening week. You're not going to have that from Worthy and Rice. So I think that this offense is going to be a lot better. I think Mahomes has more weapons around him, more big play weapons around him. So I think it's going to be kind of back to the norm. I mean, listen, they're back-to-back champions off running 2 different offenses.
Yeah. The only thing I will say of note here, there is no clear backup to me yet for Pacheco. Like that, no. I've seen so many people shuffled in the past 2 weeks, and we'll see some more next week. So if anybody's looking to try and see if they can snipe one out, best ballers have been out there taking shots at all these different people. Steele looked pretty good, a monster of a human being back there. But again, nobody wowed anybody to the point where this guy's going to be the clear backup.
Yeah.
Let's
go on to whatever team you want to go next.
I was going to just mention, I want to talk about Ray Davis in the Bills game.
Sure.
There weren't many starters in this game. You could talk about the Steelers side, but not many starters for the Bills side because we didn't see Josh Allen in there. Keon Coleman wasn't there, did have a reception. But Ray Davis had a great running game here, 2 in a row that I feel like they're going to give opportunities to this kid.
I think he solidified himself as a number 2 there. I still think it's going to be James Cook.
But let's not forget, James Cook has a ball handling problem. He fumbles a lot. I mean, the first play of his career in the NFL was a fumble, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying something to keep an eye on.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's going to cut heavily into James Cook's workload. I think it's going to be the James Cook show at the running back position.
Yes.
Unless there was an injury. I don't think he loses carries because of a fumble either.
No, I think there's going to be planned carries for Ray Davis, just as there were planned carries for backups last year.
Sure.
I don't think it's going to be the situation that everybody's expecting it to be. It was like everybody wants there to be this, there's a goal line back and then there's a rest of the field back. That's not how these NFL teams look at these all the time. Like there's legitimate goal line backs when you look at some of these bowling balls out there. But
yeah, the goal line back is Josh Allen.
Yeah, but that's the case. I was going to say, well, actually, if you look at Josh Allen's numbers, not to get into this, only 8 of them were from within the 5 or 10 out of his 15. The rest of them were from actually further out.
That's still a lot of touchdowns.
So they weren't goal line.
That's 8 touchdowns you're taking away from your running back.
Correct, but they weren't goal line.
Yeah.
But anyway, regardless, I think Ray Davis looked really good. I think he's what they expected him to be coming out of college.
Yeah, and the opposite side of this game and the Steelers' offense is just
It's Arthur Smith, people.
I'm so frustrated. Yeah, I'm so frustrated with just like even talking about like bad quarterback play from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And you think that, Russ and Justin Fields is going to be any better than Kenny Pickett or whoever is back there. It's just bad. Like both these quarterbacks played the entire game. They didn't have a backup outside of them. They just played these two. And they only managed 3 points and 138 passing yards.
At this point, I'd rather have Stetson Bennett, who played every snap for the past 2 games for the Rams.
Yeah, Bennett's looked good.
He had, 4 picks in the first game. But,
all right.
But the thing about the Steelers, too, and I will say this, is it's an Arthur Smith run offense that Arthur Smith, I don't think this is the Matt Nagy problem. He had benefit of actually having good personnel to coach that the offensive scheme worked for. It never worked for Nagy really after
the Adam Gase problem?
The Adam Gase problem. Are they really good offensive coordinators or not? And I'm not sold on Arthur Smith.
Yeah.
It was a terrible anemic offense in Atlanta last year, and you fumbled in opportunities when you could have really taken and gotten some wins. And now here, I don't know if it's necessarily a Russell Wilson and Justin Fields problem. I'm actually more in the Russell Wilson camp because I think he's the better, safer play for them. I think Justin Fields just can't read defenses that well and does not throw a good deep ball. But who do they have as pass catchers that actually can get open?
And not Pickens.
Like George Pickens is not a guy who gets open. I don't care what people say on that slant for 75 yards he had last time that nobody touched him. It was missed coverage, and it was caught over the middle, and it was gone. He does not get the separation that you need from a wide receiver one. And I think Roman Wilson is actually a good separator.
I think Roman Wilson, once he comes back and starts playing more, is going to eventually be a volume guy there, the way that Deontay Johnson was. But I think that was a big mistake from them moving on from Deontay Johnson. I think we
saw the offense passed better when he was in there.
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think you'd hope that they just start feeding the ball to the running back, so they have 2 of them. I mean, with the Jalen Warren injury, like we kind of discussed in our injury episode, we might end up seeing more volume from Najee Harris early in the season, but I would take the ball out of the quarterback's hands as much as I can.
Yeah, get to the point of running the ball, get your play action. Russell's good with play action.
But both of them are indecisive. That's kind of the problem. Is they don't have a quarterback there that is decisive. That's going to be 1-2, get the ball out.
They hold the ball too long.
Yeah, both of them.
Yep, I agree. I mean, 3 sacks for 21 yards on Russell Wilson, another sack on Justin Fields. Now Justin can run the ball, and what Wilson can. He can, but not the way Justin does. So if Pittsburgh wants to go that route, they can. I don't think it's the way they should go.
No.
Talk about Trey Benson. We'll talk about another rookie running back here that I actually thought was more of a stud. Week 1, Benson looked okay. And everybody's like, oh, Connor's got the stranglehold on this offense. Well, yeah, he does. We knew that already. That's not changing even if he had a good first preseason week 1. But this preseason, he looked pretty good. He shined. He had some good runs, some good chunk plays, had better vision than he did from preseason week 1.
Yeah, I think Trey Benson is a guy that is I think everyone was starting to draft him, and they know the injury concerns with Connor. He's not taking the role from Connor.
No.
But he's going to cut into the role. And the better he plays in this offense, he's a guy that can take it to the house. He has explosive capabilities to him that Connor just does not. Connor is a guy that's just going to run you over. He's going to wear you down. He's going to get 20 carries for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I don't care. I don't care how you go about doing it. He's effective enough, and he's efficient.
Yeah.
Again, we're talking about RB1 over the fantasy playoffs last year.
And, I mean, we're talking about a guy, 3 years ago, he had, 4 years ago, had, 18 total touchdowns, and 15 the next year.
Yeah.
The guy is the Arizona Cardinals offense for the past 4 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, Trey Benson looked good. Trey Benson should get drafted. Trey Benson is creeping up. But Trey Benson is probably going to be – he's a great dynasty play. absolutely
100% great
love
dynasty
him.
play.
Should be a first or second round pick in Dynasty because he's going to be there for a while and he's going to take over. Connor's getting older. He's going to cut into the workload a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, Trey Benson, if there is an injury, a long-term injury where Connor's out, this is a guy that I think has a chance to jump into an RB1 conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Not an RB2.
No, especially with that offense. Yeah, with that offense and the way they run, I think so too. We'll highlight real quick Commanders-Dolphins game. Again, it's more stud for Jaden Daniels. He's going to be what we expect him to be. He looked good on scramble plays. He looked good on his passes. He had a good first drive. I don't think there were any touchdowns for him this game here, but it's going to be slow for those rookies anyway. That's the only thing I will say about rookie quarterbacks that's difficult is they don't throw a lot of touchdowns in their rookie seasons. So you got to have a little grain of salt when it comes to Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
I think Caleb Williams' Vegas number right now is 29, and I think 29.5, and I think it's 24.5 for Jaden Daniels the last time I looked. So you could see that it's going to be tough for him to cap 30 for Caleb, and it's going to be tough to cap 25 for Jaden Daniels. Now, rushing, both of those, what they both can do, more Jaden than Caleb, but we saw Caleb Williams 7-yard touchdown here. I like these guys. I think they're going where they should be going in fantasy drafts. I don't think they're being too fluffed up, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure.
Outside of that, Bucky Irving for the Buccaneers, I thought had a good showing again, in my opinion. I think he proved that he should get some carries in this offense, that he's got a little bit more firepower behind him than Rachaad White. Now, Rachaad White's, again, it's the same situation as Connor. I think he's going to have the stranglehold in this offense.
Yeah.
He earned it last year, too.
It's a matter of who's going to be the number 2 there, whether Sean Tucker's going to be the number 2 or Bucky Irving. I think Bucky's proven himself that he's going to end up taking some carries and going to be involved. I don't like him in terms of a fantasy. Again, a lot of these guys, I've said it before, the rookie running backs are going to have to rely on injuries to happen for them to be effective. Jonathan Brooks being the only one outside that, but he's injured himself.
Yeah, he's got to come back from injury.
Yeah, he's got to come back.
He's got to produce. We all know what those injuries look like. He's going to be a good player next year.
Yeah. So outside of Jonathan Brooks, there's no running back that I see come in as a starter or take over a starter without an injury happening.
Yeah. For the Seahawks-Titans game, we're not going to highlight every game here, just so you guys know, because week 2 was a little bit of a dud itself because just not a lot of starters. But I do want to highlight Sam Howell has had 2 back-to-back weeks. That gives me a little bit more less concern and a little bit more comfort knowing that the backup in Seattle for those receivers that are out there is a competent passer. He threw for 4,000 last year, threw a lot of picks. Huh?
It ain't Drew Lock.
No, exactly. And I think at the end of the day, Sam Howell, if there's an injury, which could be likely to Geno, he's already dealing with one, that you get a guy who can throw the ball downfield to DK and to JSN and even Lockett, and they're going to be successful through the air.
Yeah.
On the Raiders-Cowboys game, there, again, not a lot of starters. I will say Zamir White did start and did play, and Zamir White looked good.
And Trey Lance looked good.
And Trey Lance actually looked pretty good as a backup.
Yeah. Now, I know this is a standard fantasy football league. This goes against every ounce of faith I have in the skill positions. And if you're a team that still plays with kickers, go and draft Brandon Aubrey. I have to mention this. And just the same way.
I think this is the stud of the week.
The same way you had to mention Mahomes throwing behind the back in a preseason game. We had a 66-yard field goal yesterday.
Yeah.
By Brandon Aubrey. They're going to kick field goals there.
Well, they were one of the highest scoring offenses, if not the highest last year. They passed the most in the red zone because they couldn't run it in. And who do they add to the running game? Nobody but Zeke. If they can't punch the ball in the red zone area and it's passing only, that increases your chance of kicking field goals.
Yeah. So Brandon Aubrey is a guy. I know we're not going to talk about kickers very often here, but this is a big shout out. 66-yard field goal with some room to spare too. I mean, monstrous kick. So got to shout it out. Go and draft him. He should probably be the first kicker off the board for you. I know everyone likes to go Tucker, but they score touchdowns in the red zone.
There's 2 games going on today, Sunday, August 18th. I do want to mention you got Saints-Niners. One person to watch out here is actually
Spencer
Rattler, in my opinion. I think you got to keep an eye on him because
I want to see A.T. Perry's second preseason game.
I'm not worried. He showed it last year and he showed it this year. I think he's going to do it, but Rattler's the guy that you really want to keep an eye on because, especially in Dynasty, but I think at the end of the day, he's somebody that you want to keep your eye on while he's on waivers because if he eventually overtakes Derek Carr, that offense could look a lot different. I'm not saying he's going to be an immediate starter, but he's a good stash bench mid-season if he ends up becoming the starter because you just never know with injuries here. And then Broncos-Packers. I'm less looking at any of the Packers, and I'm more actually looking at Bo Nix again and Troy Franklin and this Denver offense. And that's if they end up getting a full go, which I think it sounds like he's going to. So
I love how like your highlighted players on those are like backups.
I think Bo Nix is going to be the starter.
I don't know.
I mean, what
I don't know.
Everybody who's played so far this preseason week 2 has been backups, except for like 2 teams. So who else am I going to highlight?
No, I'm just saying, like, you know.
A.T. Perry's a backup.
Yeah, well, he's going to be the number 3.
But I'm just saying,
yeah, I mean,
you tell me who else you would highlight in those. Like,
I don't know.
Like, is there anybody from the running game you want to watch Estime maybe for the Broncos?
Yeah,
like,
I'd rather see what the running back situation is there. I'd rather see what the quarterback situation like. They're
that's
team,
why I want to see what Bo Nix is doing.
Well, they're a team. I want to see what Stidham does. Like not just him. I want to see what Stidham does. I want to see what Zach Wilson does. Like this is a team like Vegas who has an actual quarterback controversy. Like who do you play?
But do they really? I mean, you know who they drafted and why they put the capital, and you know Peyton loves it.
That's fine, but is it going to try? Like you can love a dude if he's not playing and performing. Like no coach is stupid enough to just keep a guy out there and failing when you have other guys.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree.
So I want to see what it looks like. I want to see what they look like. I want to see what the usage is from the running backs. I want to see what who's on the field during certain formations for the wide receivers. Like outside of Cortland Sutton, who else is gonna step up there?
Yeah,
because it hasn't been Troy Franklin so far.
No, he's a rookie. I don't expect it to be right away either. Too.
Who's going to be the number 2 and the number 3?
I mean, you expect it to be Craig Reynolds at first, or Josh Reynolds. Sorry, yeah. Josh Reynolds at first, which he's played well too. But again, you never know. Sometimes these rookies, because it's not like Troy Franklin was a first round rookie, but sometimes these rookies, it takes them a couple weeks to get things under their feet, and their talent shines through. So that's what I do want to see too. Maybe this is the week we see it.
Sure.
So. That's it for week 2. We'll come back on week 3. We'll got our mock-a-thons coming up where you get a mock draft every single day from different positions. So don't forget to hit the notification button, like and subscribe to this channel here. Share it with your league. Share it with your friends. And so we can give you guys the best information that you guys need on a week-to-week basis and leading up into your drafts.
And hey, drop comments. We love the comments.
Yeah. If you want to hear about somebody, if you want our take on a certain player, drop it in there. We'll message you back number 1, but we'll highlight it in our next episode.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Have a good one, guys.